Welcome back to What Matters This Week. I'm Lauren Maloney. Joining us this Sunday is the new U.S. Attorney for Vermont, Nikolas Kerest. Sir, I appreciate you joining us.
Thanks, Lauren. Thanks for having me.
Over a month right now into the position, what can you tell us about the office and any of the changes that you hope to make?
Thanks, Lauren. Well, first of all, this is a fantastic office. It's an honor and a privilege of a lifetime to be the U.S. Attorney in Vermont and have the chance to lead this office of dedicated public servants. We have about 53 people here who come into work every day looking to keep Vermonters safe and protect the public fisc in Vermont. And it's my honor to have the opportunity to do this job. I've been lucky to work here for about 11 years before I got this job, and under the leadership of three fantastic U.S. attorneys. So in large part, I look to continue their great work. The changes that we'll make here will be around the edges. I look at this job as an internally facing job, and that involves running the office, and then an externally facing job, and that involves interacting with our partners in the community, both law enforcement and non-law enforcement partners. And in that regard, I'm looking forward to continuing and extending outreach that we can do in this office to make sure that important conversations are happening and that we understand what kinds of cases we can do to have the greatest positive community impact.
Before we talk issues, first of all, what is it like, the process like, to be a presidential nominee? Was there a lot of interviews?
Lauren, it's a long and arduous process. It is not something that I'd ever been through before or really knew what to expect. It took a long time, and ultimately I was just really happy and honored to be chosen.
Okay. Let's talk about payroll protection fraud. I know this is something your office wants to address. We heard of big cases elsewhere in other parts of the country. Is it a problem in Vermont?
We think it is, Lauren. There are all kinds of white collar fraud that are going on, and it's one of our priorities here to focus on white collar fraud and the Paycheck Protection Program is a rife area for that kind of fraud. We will look at those kinds of cases as they come in and work with our law enforcement partners to investigate them. And if people are using the funds that they received from the government as a result of the pandemic for purposes that are not identified in the program as being allowable, they should expect our office and our law enforcement partners to bring the force of the federal law against them.
I know you can't talk specific about cases, but are there several issues that you're following? Or are there new developments that your office is tracking?
Well, Lauren, in the fraud area, if you're referring to the Paycheck Protection Program, we're looking at several different angles. They all generally fall in the category of people using funds that were intended to protect employees' jobs for other purposes. Those can take different varieties. There are, anyone can use their imagination of the type of inappropriate usages of those funds people might make. They might use the money for their own personal benefit and for other types of unallowable expenses. Those funds are pretty strictly regulated when you receive them. And so anytime they're used for purposes outside those allowable purposes, we're going to be paying attention. And the pandemic has raised other areas of concern for us, Lauren. We've seen an uptick in violent crime. That's another area of emphasis for us. Besides white collar fraud, where we, like much of the country, is seeing an uptick in violent crime. There's been a sharp increase, it appears, in robberies of stores and banks over the last few years. But just this year in January, we're seeing those numbers skyrocket even more. According to statewide statistics, there were about 36 of those types of robberies in 2020, about 42 in 2021. And in January, just this January so far, which we're not even done with, we've already seen 12. So we are devoting resources towards that area. We're letting our law enforcement partners know that those are cases that we're interested in pursuing, especially when they involve violence or firearms. Those are cases that we're interested in doing to try to stem what appears to be an uptick in violent crime in Vermont.
You mentioned the bank robberies. I mean, we've seen, like you said, this month alone, several press releases coming in from not only the state police, but some of the, the local municipal organizations as well. When it comes to violent crime, what particularly are you looking at? Are you concerned about a spike in, perhaps?
Well, we evaluate all cases or potential cases and investigations that come into our office the same way. We look at the facts that the agents bring to us, that law enforcement bring to us, that we're hearing from the community, and we compare those facts to the laws that we prosecute. In the violent crime area, we are very focused on gun violence, on federal firearm law violations. Vermont does not have a lot of state firearm laws, and so a lot of the law enforcement efforts and prosecution efforts when it comes to firearms falls to our office, and we're happy to do it. We're up to that challenge, and we see it as a priority. So when we see these reports of robberies, and like you, I look at my phone each morning, and it seems like every morning there's a new article or press release about some sort of robbery happening around the state, or a series of robberies likely committed by the same person. When we look at those, we look to see the facts, and in particular, we're looking for the violence angle and the use of firearms.
Sir, before you were even nominated, the acting U.S. attorney at the time, Jonathan Arpart, wrote a commentary mentioning violent crime, how it was up in the state of Vermont, but he also talked about the need for more law enforcement and that recruitment and retention was in crisis. The question for you is, have we made inroads in the last 6 months to a year, or is this still a concern for you right now?
Well, Lauren, we are still definitely concerned about the uptick in violent crime. There's no doubt about that. That's why we're making it a priority of ours to take those cases when we can. Look, we have limited resources in this office as well, and we have to triage each case that comes in and decide whether it's something we can take on with our resources. But in terms of allocating those resources right now, violent crime is definitely a priority because of that uptick that we see. And in terms of the issue of law enforcement retention, look, it's a difficult time to be a law enforcement officer on the front lines. There are necessary and overdue conversations going on about police reform. Those are important conversations. They need to happen. More people need to be involved with them. But that doesn't change the fact that being on the front lines right now is an extremely difficult place to be. We need to understand the community's perspectives on those issues and law enforcement's perspectives on those issues. Everybody wants to feel safe in their community, and it's true that not everybody feels safe or feels that law enforcement provides them the safety that they want. But those kinds of conversations in the community between law enforcement and community groups need to happen to improve that situation improve the community's view of law enforcement, and improve law enforcement's ability to do its job.
You mentioned some of your concerns right now, some of the big issues for the state, but I wonder, like you said, you've been in the office, in a large part for several years. So what has Vermont done well over the past few years? Where have we made inroads that we can be proud of something right now?
Well, Lauren, on that score, what comes to mind, and this is a difficult topic because the numbers don't always suggest that we're making progress, but I would say that the amount of resources and the thought and effort and conversations that have gone on in order to address the opioid crisis is something that Vermont should be proud of. We should be horrified by the number of overdoses that are going on. There is no doubt about that. So it's not time to declare victory, but it is time, and it is important to recognize the incredible amount of time and effort that people have put into thinking about and trying to solve that crisis. And in this office and with the partners that we work with, there's a couple of things that are worth highlighting. We've participated in two types of drug courts. One is what we call a reentry court, which happens post-sentencing for some of our defendants. And if they successfully complete that reentry court, they can shorten the time that they are supervised by their probation officer. And that court involves frequent meetings with the judge and the probation officers and a lawyer from our office and a lawyer on the defense side. And it involves counseling and employment opportunities and check-ins on all those things. It's a great program. And another type of drug court that we participate in is pre-sentencing, and that has many of the same characteristics, but offers the opportunity for successful participants to have a misdemeanor resolution, potentially, if they qualify and satisfy all the elements of the drug court program. So that's just to highlight the fact that the prosecutors, the defense lawyers, the court, places like the Howard Center are all working extremely hard to try to address the addiction issues that stem from the opioid crisis. So it's still ongoing. It's still a big problem, but when you ask what have we done well, I think we've come together as a community and as a state in the legal community and elsewhere to try to address that issue.
Mr. U.S. Attorney, I appreciate you joining us. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. Thanks for having me.